Hello and welcome to everyone joining us around the globe. My name is Brian Clark and I'm the Senior Vice President of Global Operations at AgileOne. I've been with AgileOne for about 15 years now and in the industry for a little more than 23 years. I'm currently residing in Atlanta, Georgia, and really excited to meet with you and have this interesting discussion today as it has such strong global implications. Tatiana?
And hello, everyone. My name is Tatiana Ohm. I am a managing director of AgileOne in Europe. I have been with AgileOne just over 1.5 years, but equally to Brian, an industry veteran. Have been in the industry for 25 years, residing both in EMEA regions as well as the Asia Pacific. And I'm calling into this webinar from my cozy home in Hamburg, Germany. So welcome, everyone.
We appreciate each of you being with us here today for this very important discussion. It's especially pertinent right now because we're currently seeing an increase in COVID cases around the globe. As you all know very well, some European countries have been in various stages of lockdown for a few weeks now, and the US is seeing an unprecedented number of positive tests every day. So in this discussion, we want to focus on what the benefits are of having an MSP and what they can provide both now and as you start to look at what a post-COVID world looks like. In both instances, we'll demonstrate the value and partnership that an MSP brings to the table, assessing and delivering on your current needs while also driving innovation and assisting you in preparing for the future. So Tatiana, can you please share with us what you're seeing in the European market today?
Oh, absolutely. And thank you, Brian, for kicking us off. So while we all are really excited about the announcement, actually as of yesterday already of 2 successful trials of COVID-19 vaccine, meantime, we're still affected by the pandemic in all aspects of our lives. COVID pandemic has impacted a number of important markets, and staffing market is included in this number. We see some common trends with the different business drivers across the countries in Europe, but with a couple of bright spots that I'll share with you in a moment. Before COVID-19, the UK staffing market was one of the few major European staffing markets that has been experiencing growth. However, that has changed with the virus, and the UK has been one of the most COVID-afflicted countries in the world. This also led to a steady decline in the demand for talent, and so far we see really only weak signs of recovery. While not as affected as UK, France has not fared well in the pandemic either. In addition, the French staffing market is highly exposed to industrial staffing, one of the sectors that has been most affected during the pandemic and the lockdowns. If we move to Germany, really the weakening economy coupled with the 18 months assignment limit, which has been enacted in 2017, led to a double-digit decline in the German staffing market this year. Though Germany has been relatively effective in managing the pandemic, the country's sizable manufacturing sector is highly export-oriented and therefore exposed to both supply chain disruptions and also sinking global demand. In the Netherlands, on the other side, we see some bright signs. So in the Netherlands, the pandemic restriction imposed were far less stringent than in the other markets in the beginning. And then combined with the ad hoc government financial support, many businesses were able to stay afloat until the economy bottomed out in the spring. Since then, the demand for staffing services has been limited as staffing suppliers struggle with muted demand, in particular from the manufacturing, automotive, and also the logistics sector. However, just this week, the Dutch Institute for Statistics published a report saying in Q3 2020, GDP is predicted to grow by about 7.7%. And their chief economist stated this will also apply to the labor markets. And it seems that the second COVID-19 wave being more under control in the Netherlands against some of their neighboring countries. So I'm sure that things are lightening up there faster than in the other markets. And then I just want to close my review with Italy, because I believe Italy has been one of the most COVID-afflicted countries in the world on a per capita basis. They have imposed strict lockdowns measures implemented in early March and only beginning to be eased in May. So in response to the recession, the Italian government has introduced a raft of measures, including the possibility of extending fixed contracts without reasons through 2020. While we see significant impacts on the individual staffing markets, I think it's really important to take a holistic view on the macro development in Europe from the talent perspective. So organizations globally are experiencing unprecedented workforce disruption. Many companies are still determining how we will function in the future as workforces and communities learn new ways to function, perform, but also cope with the current challenges. Now, even before the COVID-19 pandemic, changing technologies, new ways of working were disrupting jobs and the skills employees need to do them. In 2017, the McKinsey Global Institute estimated that 14% of the global workforce would have to switch occupations or acquire new skills by 2030 because of either automation or digitalization and as well artificial intelligence. However, in the recent McKinsey Global Survey, 87% of the executives said that they were experiencing either skill gaps in the workforce or expected them within a few years. But less than half of respondents had a clear sense of how to address the problem. So as you can see, those conversations has been going for a while. The coronavirus pandemic has made this question just more urgent than ever. So workers across industries must figure out how they can adapt to rapidly changing conditions, and companies have to learn how to match those workers to new roles and activities. All of this is happening in the virtual environment, whereby many talent has been hired and onboarded into the organization using all of digital media that's available to us today, but without a single in-person interaction where they could see someone face to face. So as we look into those trends, we have asked HR and business leaders across all industries, what are the key objectives they need to address on behalf of their organizations, or key challenges they need to address on behalf of their organizations? And this is what we heard back, and we kind of tried to group it into the 4 different groups. First was talking about enabling and optimizing a remote workforce. So if you think about the numbers, 54% of HR leaders indicated that poor technology and or infrastructure for remote working is the biggest barrier to effective remote work. And also, let's not forget the well-being of the individuals that deliver the remote work today, right? We're now suddenly kind of wearing the multiple hats and perform the work in the places that never have kind of built to actually perform work. What is really remarkable that prior to the pandemic, industries where many jobs could conceivably be done remotely already were outgrowing their less flexible peers. And they already had a response on how to manage the work-life balance of their teams. Another big bucket is what we call the rapid reskilling. You know, we talked about it just previously, that changes in workload during the pandemic have sometimes resulted in an imbalance of resource allocation. So obviously the organization needs to take responsibility for the reskilling and upskilling of their employees, so they can, but that not just address the gaps that they have today, but also address a very strong desire that talent has today to acquire new skills. But also HR and business partners all agreed that gig workers will play even bigger role as they play today in acquiring and aligning talent skills to the business strategy. The other kind of bucket that we grouped it around was maintaining cost, capability, and capacity. So balancing cost in the short term, particularly now in the, we're in the midst of the crisis, is critical to protect long-term strategy. However, impact will be felt around reduced revenue. I mean, obviously many companies have been struggled with this, but also disruption of supply chain and customer purchasing, or even kind of customer behavior. So, but what we also will experience is increased cost and loss of productivity. And why? Due to family care duties, people not able kind of to perform the work within the time frame that they were able to perform the work before. Absenteeism, in many countries, it's now very, very, when you just became sick, you already can stay at home and you have to stay at home. Travel restrictions, but also mandatory quarantines that at least in Germany, I see increased number of mandatory quarantines. So what we need to do is kind of look at the efficient, innovative solutions. And if you think about it, talent is really the core and the key for the innovation of the future. We all need human-centered and system-minded approach that promotes shared workforce resilience. The word resilience became even more important in our days than ever have been before. But it also requires the development of persistent capabilities and relationships across stakeholder groups, minding varied labor laws and regulations around the world. And then I just kind of, if I may, Brian, I want to conclude with the quote of our founder and CEO, Janice Bryant-Howroyd. And she, in the very beginning of the pandemic, what she shared with all of us, and that really became our organizational mantra, testing of full functions of your organization has to become a protocol, not just a one-time event.
This is really interesting, Tatiana. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I think ultimately what you're saying to us is that the impact on the labor market, coupled with the pressure on organizations to become more agile and open to new ways to recruit and onboard talent, is bringing us unprecedented challenges in the marketplace. So help me understand, why do you believe an MSP can provide a significant contribution in addressing the challenges that you just identified?
Great question. And luckily, I'm not the only one, Brian. So in addition to many customers who actually have made decision to implement MSP during the COVID crisis, we also partnered with our longstanding partner, Staffing Industry Analysts. And they have, they're very long, they have been in business for over 30 years, and they have a very large customer base. And those are customers who are looking for the ways to optimize their workforce solutions. So they have posed a question to them, asking, if you work with a managed service provider, MSP, what would you say is the chief contribution they have made to your organization's COVID-19 response? So all of the organizations could participate in the survey, and the answers were free form. So as we take a close look into the answers, we kind of tried, for the purpose of today's conversation, we grouped them together in order of importance. And first was, not a surprise, of course, but it was communication with the suppliers and external talent. So the MSP help organizations to manage the information flow between all parties, which was really critical, especially where many organizations really didn't know what to do, and if there are different policies that will be applicable to the different group of talents. Now, then the second would be a proactive recommendations and collaboration on all aspects of external talent engagement. This is something that, the organization just didn't wait what will happen to them. They worked with the MSP to make it happen with them. Now, the third part was worker data, visibility, and control. And then, of course, again, if we're talking about where your workers are they well? If you brought someone from abroad, maybe from affected country, are they observing their quarantine things? This was an MSP responsibility. And I can even remember our own cases where we kind of managed movements of hundreds of workers cross-border, maintaining the visibility on all of them, where they are and what's happening with them. And then the fourth was support with increased demand. Not some businesses, of course, has been impacted by COVID-19, but we have seen businesses who increased their production significantly. And for that, we as an MSP, or I'm sure that our peer MSPs, just stepped in and help organizations to align their demand and supply really quickly. And not to go into the details, but I just want you see here on the slide, you can see a comments that has been shared as part of the survey, but I just want to name a few just for us kind of to remember what was really remarkable about the MSP support. And we'll talk about the, managing a large complex project to bring in additional call center people. Call center people were in a huge demand across the world, and kind of MSP really stepped in and helped to scale it up really quickly. Best practice sharing, the MSP team used to deploy and get ahead and then make recommendation to us on how to proceed, timeliness to get communication to supplier base, and assistance with offboarding. Or another one that I really loved was about white glove approach. So MSP partnered really closely and delivered extremely well. They made solid recommendations in communicating with suppliers and provided a client-wide communication recommendation. So this is just to name a few where the clients really crediting MSPs to help them to stay on the top of the COVID-19 response. What's interesting also that many organizations engage external partners with different different aspects of their talent strategy. So staffing industry analysts also reached out to all their customers with a very simple question. Based on your overall experience during the COVID-19 pandemic, are you more likely or less likely than before to recommend the following workforce solution providers? So here you can see some data comparison across multiple pillars. And there was in total 6 pillars. It was staffing suppliers, was MSP, which stands for Managed Service Provider, VMS, which stands for Vendor Management Software, was online staffing platforms, FMS, which stands for Functional Managed Services, and RPO, which is a recruitment process outsourcing. And from my perspective, we see an MSP as a clear winner across all providers. Customers across all industries saying that MSP made the greatest impact on their ability to manage their talents, their talent strategies, and also talent engagement through the pandemic. So if we kind of take in consideration everything that we just discussed in the previous slide, I believe that MSP providers appear to have made one of the greatest impact on customers during this period, with 24% of the customers stating they would be more likely to recommend their provider than before. But if you think about the environment that we are living in right now, right? There is a really rapidly changing environment. I don't think we will live through so much change as kind of this year than before. I have to admit, I sometimes watch the movies from last year, and I keep asking myself, when people hugging each other, why don't they wear a mask? So it's became a new norm for us. So with the rapidly changed business environment, but also social climate, I think what is really important for all of the organizations is to keep up, right? To keep up with the speed of change. So our actions must really reflect current events, but also more certainly they need to include how the effective MSP will operate in the future. So every MSP provider as it stands today, look at direct and indirect cost reduction, they improve your processes, they help you to reduce risk, consolidate invoices so that your administration goes better, and also help to right size your supplier base. But in the new world of work, some of the methodologies potentially will quickly become obsolete. So if you engage either with your current MSP, or if you engage with your into the discussion and conversation with your MSP, you really need to look into it on the multiple levels. And first, that definitely is extremely important and is in the center of all of the conversations we are having with our customers, is data insights. Because data are going to help you quickly adapt and make smart database decisions. It also will improve visibility into program data and costs. It also will, so when disruption actually demands you to act, you are able to make really rapid decisions, not just based on fear, but actually based on facts. And also the data provide you with the insights to predict the future demand and also align this future demand with your supply strategies. Another part of this conversation is around talent and business engagement. Because as an organization, you really need to be flexible and take action to align your workforce with the skill sets you need, but also prioritize by location, right? Which is, potentially will become obsolete in the future, but we still operate within our physical locations today. I think as an organization, you also really need to take advantage of holistic workforce strategies. Not just looking at your talent by category, but looking at your talent across the board and being able to reskill and reshuffle your talent where you as a business need them to be. Also use a combination of strong relationships, but also technologies that are available to you today to create a talent pool, because talent pools will secure you access to the workers you need, not just now, but also the workers you need in the future. The third aspect that I wanted to discuss with you today, Brian, is compliance and engagement. Because if you go back and think about what started happening in March with everybody going home and start working from home, on one hand, you need a partner who can onboard, but also expand your supplier base really quickly to address the situation where your kind of demand is spiking. They need to help you to access those talent. But at the same time, what we have seen with some of the other businesses, you need to effectively offboard suppliers and contingent staff so you can align with declines in demand. And then of course, we should not forget that everybody needs to stay ahead of the regulations to reduce risks in all of the aspects of your compliance. Because this is the only way you can stay in the conversation when countries and localities in Europe adopt new measures to protect workers across the board. And then I can't kind of not notice it, because it's a strategic conversation is really important as well. MSP can provide you with the MSP can become your outside peer, right? So they can provide you with the outside perspective, access to the talent insights, so you can proactively refine the program to meet long-term business goals, meeting your needs today while keeping an eye on how your future talent needs will evolve. And we really should not forget about the social aspect of the MSP, as diversity and inclusion continues to play an increased significant role across Europe. So as we continue to discuss our discussion around talent and how MSP is helping our customers to solve their unique talent problems in a vulnerable and uncertain world, I kind of want to bring this discussion to conclusion about this the resources that you need to make sure that you leveraging this holistic approach with the insights. And there are three distinct resources that you as an organization need to look into. So first is the past organizational data. Second is the future talent demand planning. And third is the external market data provided by your talent partners. And in this case, it definitely can be an MSP. It's also, when I'm kind of reflecting on this, I also have to say that it's one thing to acquire those insights, but it's also another thing is to apply them. So the situation today is where the future is unknown, norms are forever disrupted. So you as an organization need to look into many more dimensions of your talent strategy. And luckily, AgileOne has experience to help you thoughtfully navigate the pathway of talent management, also making sure that when the time is right, you progress from efficiency to effectiveness, and then ultimately onto exponential value add. So, so I think, Brian, what are your thoughts on how MSP can support the creation of future-proof talent strategies?
Thank you, Tatiana. From my perspective, I think we have to reaffirm that at the heart of everything is your business strategy. Everything that you may decide to do as a business will have some kind of impact on your external talent. And so as we look at what happened with the pandemic, I think we have to find ways to move from the just-in-time disaster responses that we saw earlier this year to the strategic talent acquisition and planning approach that you just described. Tatiana, I think we need to look into the following areas. The first one would be, what are the skills and expertise that you will need to deliver to have your desired outcomes today? And what does your data tell you? As you highlighted, data is so important. And probably even more important, as you look at the data, how does that match up against your perception of what your current situation is? I think we also have to look at what skills and expertise you need for the future. And then we need to take a look at what strategies do you have in place to either build, buy, or borrow that talent that you're going to need. And then finally, how is this strategy supported by your company's historical experiences? Ultimately, the new normal will require MSPs to connect to future demand in an even greater way than we have in the past. It's going to entail increased agility, more strategic client provider partnerships, and a forward-thinking approach that prepares for what's next, whatever the future may hold. I think there's no way for us to predict and understand the impact of what happened to us this previous March. But we now, I think, understand even more clearly that we have to be able to be ready for anything. I think this new requirement can take many forms. It's going to involve us taking a closer look at your talent insights and leveraging data analytics, as we've talked about this whole presentation. You must begin a close examination of the skill sets needed for your business to succeed today, but also an in-depth look at what's needed for tomorrow. It requires you to put in the necessary time and effort, the work that's required to understand the requirements that you have for your workforce, both now and in the future. And I think the great news there is that you will have, or you should have, an MSP partner to help you with that work and with that planning and with that understanding. And finally, beginning to anticipate the market dynamics that are going to impact hiring costs and the flow of talent into your organization. So there's almost always a silver lining when we have challenges like we've seen this year. COVID-19 is certainly an opportunity for those organizations that quickly adapt and redefine their business to meet rapidly changing demands. As our founder and CEO, Janice Bryan Howroyd, has stated many times this year, let's make sure we don't just go through this, let's grow through this.
Oh, thank you, Brian. Such a great closure. And absolutely, let's not just go through this, let's grow through this. Thank you for a great conversation. And I think we just have a couple of minutes left. If there are any questions from the audience, and let's open up the chat for the questions. Okay. So maybe I can read one question, Brian, that maybe you can answer. So how did COVID impacted AgileOne, and what activities AgileOne undertake to respond to the COVID pandemic?
It's really a great question, Tatiana. Thank you. And I think there's a couple of key things that AgileOne did. And I think you can look all the way across the organization from our founder and CEO, from our executive leadership, from our marketing team, from so many people that were involved to help us really respond in a positive and in a very, very quick fashion. But ultimately, I think we were able to further grow our workforce capabilities in the remote fashion and very quickly get up to speed and handle everything across the globe from a remote capacity. We saw communications really go out in real time to our customers, to our suppliers, to our team members, as well as to those workers that are in our programs. I think we successfully challenged many of the assumptions that we had previously about how an MSP should operate. And I think we've proven there's new and better models out there and that we are actually using today very successfully. And I think probably the most interesting part of all of this is that we kind of called time out and really spent a lot of time working on the AgileOne culture. It was already really, really well established, but we tried and spent a lot of time and effort evolving it and moving it in the direction that we felt strongly that our culture should be. And I think the fun spinoff of that has been how much fun and how much enjoyment we've gotten out of seeing everybody on screen and talking to people face to face via Zoom like we are today. But even though we're thousands of miles apart, it's just been so much fun. And in many ways, I feel like we're closer as an organization than we've ever been.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Brian. I have one more question before we would need to close up the webinar, but what we promise, guys, if you want to send us some more questions, please do so, and we'll distribute it together with the presentation. So the question is, what specific benefits did MSP provide, we as an MSP provide to our existing clients during the pandemic?
You want to tackle that one, Tatiana?
Yeah, maybe. So I think it's kind of during our presentation, really kind of try to allude with it, because it started with a very simple way. When all of the lockdown started, we say, how are we going to communicate to the workers, what we're going to communicate with them, how we make sure everybody is safe, how we make sure that everybody knows what is expected and what we need to do. So we took over the complete communication. We made recommendations on the communication, but also on the policies, right, on how to address those challenges with the workers and the suppliers and how to align it throughout the throughout the pandemic. You know, next to that, we also looked into helping to understand for the workers who really struggled with kind of keeping up with their work-life balance due to the increased commitments in the house. We also worked with the suppliers and our customers to make sure how we can balance it out. Should we reduce maybe the hours of the workers? Should we kind of what guidance we can provide to them? We looked in the way how we report, what we report on, and continue through the pandemic with the communication. But also we have seen in some locations, we have seen an increased demand. So in the midst of the pandemic, we actually onboard new suppliers. We worked with the new suppliers to make sure that that they know what we're looking for and help the customers to react on the increased demand. And then I really, really want to stress out that I'm especially proud of how fast we were able to create a completely virtual on and offboarding programs for our customers, also for AgileOne, of course, but for our customers, where I did a quick math, and I think we probably on and offboarded like about 1,000 workers in Europe alone this year. Not seeing them, right, collecting all of the equipments and making sure that they are safe and sound and kind of coming on their assignment. So absolutely, there are many things that we were able to do as the MSP partners to our customers. Anything you would want to add, Brian?
No, Tatiana, I think you covered it so well. And what a pleasure it's been to have this conversation with you today. And what a pleasure it is to talk with all of these great people across the globe.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining, and we'll make sure that reach out to get a copy and also get a response for the couple of questions that we were not able to take. Thank you guys. Have a great afternoon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.